This little motorcycle right here completely changed the motorcycle industry and the way that we see motorcycles today. Now I'm going to tell you guys all about it. This is the very rare, very sought after 1986 BMW R80 GS. And it's becoming one of the most sought after BMWs with enthusiasts and riders because of two things. One, because it's awesome, and two, because of utility, which I'm going to show you guys more in a second when we actually ride it. So this is the motorcycle that kind of started it all. And without this bike, the gap between dirt and street would be a chasm. In the annals of motorcycle history, few bikes have achieved the iconic status of the BMW GS. This groundbreaking machine not only solidified BMW's reputation for engineering excellence, but also redefined what a motorcycle could be, giving birth to the adventure touring category that we know today. But like all good stories, this one also starts in the 80s. There was no boardroom meeting, there was no committee, there was no marketing team to come up with this idea. There was just some BMW internal engineers, mechanics, and guys that knew that they wanted to go faster. So they started modifying the BMW R75/5, and it worked because the legendary German enduro rider Herbert Scheck was able to win 3 championships in a row and 2 gold medals in the international 6-day trial, which ultimately led to the first purpose-built off-road, on-road motorcycle, which is actually what GS stands for. All right, now get ready. I'm about to destroy the German language, but GS stands for Geländestrabe, and what it means is off-road, on-road. Germans are not that great at naming things. Like, every German's dog's name is dog, their cat is named cat. When they named their military tank, 1, 2, 3, 4, it was just tank, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's kind of like the Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon, Gelände wagon, off-road wagon. Not great at naming, amazing at engineering and building stuff. So the R80 GS is the first generation of the GS bike, and it went from 1980 to 1987. But what makes this bike so great is that it does so many things so well, and to be honest with you, that doesn't really make any sense that it's able to do that. And throughout the generations of the different bikes, it continues getting better and better at everything that it does. It's better off-road than it ever was, and it's better on-road than it ever was. And here are some of the aspects that makes it work so well. Starting with the paralever rear suspension. Now you'll notice, one, you could say it's a single-sided swing arm, but there's no swing arm. You got the shock up here. This is the drive shaft housing. This is your final drive. That's the swing arm, saving tons of weight and making it super simple. The R80 GS also boasted a ginormous 24-liter fuel tank, making it perfect for those long off-road and on-road distances. Now you need better stopping power. Now compared to modern day bikes, single-sided front disc brake it's not a huge deal because we also have twins on all bikes now. But back then, it was kind of a big deal. But you had single-sided, cross-drilled Brembo brakes. The Italians and the Germans teaming up, making brakes for your bike. The other thing about this bike is the improved ergonomics. So one, you're sitting down, you're comfortable. The handlebars are higher up than what it might normally be. But then also, for when you're off-road, you're still also very comfortable. If these bars were down here, it'd be awful. But they're up here. You get in your battle position, knees bent, hit all those off-road bumps. It's perfect for both. And then you got durability. I mean, the GS bikes are legendary and known for just lasting forever. I mean, look at it. It's a tank. BMW's legendary engineering and build quality ensure that the R80 GS can withstand even the most demanding of conditions. And one of the reasons why is its boxer engine. It's a 797cc flat boxer engine, and it makes around 60 horsepower, it's not bad for the 80s. Then it sends its power through the 5-speed gearbox, then through the shaft drive, then through the final drive, then through the spoked wheels, and onto the 18-inch wheels. The bike's also made to go through high water. I mean, obviously, that might be an issue right there, but the air intake box is pretty high up. Also, I mean, I feel like they thought they were pretty clever. The Germans are pretty clever. I really like this. Really easy. You don't need any keys or anything to take the seat off. Just push this button right here, pops the seat off, and then you have access to your toolkit. This thing where the toolkit sits, and then access to the battery. And you can see everything's real simple and clean, and it's such a pain when it's impossible to get to your battery because your battery's dead or something like that. Put that back in there. But what's cool about it is if you're like me, you would leave this unlocked, or it's a little keyhole, and you can actually lock that, so you need a key to open up your seat. I think that's a great idea. Now you'll also notice that the exhaust is higher up than the skid plate on the bottom of the engine. Very strategic, because the last thing you want to be doing is bottoming out on a tree, bust your exhaust all up. Now if the bike is laying on the side stand and you start the bike for the first time, it's not uncommon, even after 1,000 or 2,000 miles, for you to get a little bit of smoke, and because the bike's laying on its side, the oil kind of bleeds through the piston rings and then kind of burns up. It's a pretty normal thing. That's why a lot of times I like to store my bike on the center stand. However, the center stand on this bike is hard. It's really hard to put the bike on because I can't really, there's not much to grab. There's also not really any, there's not like the leverage. Normally the modern bikes have leverage where you kind of put your weight on it, you grab something, you pull up. This, I couldn't, I'm sure there's a way to do it. I just couldn't figure out what it was. So I needed help to do it. But I could have done it. Now the other cool thing about this bike, if you come over here, is the kickstart. This is not like a normal kickstart where you're on the bike and you wanna kick it. This is more kind of, you're off the bike and you would kick it like this. Turn the key, turn that on, and honestly, I've never been able to get it to fire up off that kickstart. I like pressing the screen button better. It's a little bit easier. But if your battery's dead, I love the idea of the kickstart. All right, I know what you guys are dying to do. Let's fire this thing up. Let's take it for a spin. Now the first thing you notice when you get on one of these boxer engine bikes and you're on you're flat-footed and you rev it up, it twists like this. It's really cool. Let me get my gear on and let's take this thing for a spin. All right, so before we ride this thing, let's do the words of wisdom, and that is Matthew 28:19. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and of the Holy Spirit. First of all, these bikes are known for lasting forever. This bike has 32,000 miles. It feels like it's brand new. It does have a cool generator light, so when you stop and it's idling, it makes it very clear that it's not charging the battery anymore because the RPMs are not high enough for this thing to charge the battery. So if that generator light is shining red, yeah, you got some problems. I'm still trying to put my finger on of exactly what it is about this bike that feels so fun to ride. And one, it has a really nice vibration to it. Then when you're sitting there and you're idling and you get on the throttle, you kind of twist sideways, which is really fun. I love the boxer engines, a bit like that. And the more you go, the higher the RPMs, the more it smooths out. It doesn't continue vibrating more and more and more and more to make it even tougher and stuff. It smooths out, or it just kind of levels off. I've let all my friends jump on this bike and ride it. All the guys who ride bikes, they ride BMWs, they ride new stuff, they ride old stuff, and they all say the same thing, man. They're like, oh, that bike is so much fun. And the power of these things is actually pretty decent. I think it's somewhere around 60 horsepower. It's 1250 or 1300 when they're pushing out over 130 horsepower, but it's not slow and it's such a fun bike to ride. Now it is a 5-speed, and when it comes to starting it, there is a kickstart. Maybe when I first got it, I got it to kick with the kickstart a couple times. We just did a video on the Bikes and Beards channel where I'd pay you $100 if you can start this motorcycle. And what everyone forgot to do was, they turned the key, that was right. Some guys put the choke on. What most people forgot to do is there's the start button right there. When it's very cold, it cranks up very well. And that's one of the reasons why it's becoming to be so sought after. Collectors, BMW enthusiasts, the Gen 1 BMW GS, the R80 GS, which started it all. One, they're getting rare. They're really hard to find. I actually have 2 of them. I get the other one's a Dakar Rally Edition. Sometimes these things are selling for upwards of like $35,000. You know, sometimes even more if it's low miles and really clean. And if it's the Paris Dakar edition, it gets pretty nuts. The reason people are so excited about them, they're usable. You add so much more value to something that you can still use and enjoy and have fun and experience. You could tour on this bike, you can ride this thing on the road, you can have a great time. You could also take it off-road if you wanted to. This one's got knobby tires. It would do great off-road. It'd be a blast. It's got crash bars. You know, do what it's made to do. BMW is known for making a quality machine, especially in their motor rad, especially in their motorcycle department. It's just, they're quality bikes. They weren't always known for speed, but in the past, you know, decade, they're known for speed now, if they weren't before. And that's why it's not unusual to see these BMW GS bikes, whether it's the 80 or the 100 or the 1100 or the 1150 or the 12 or the 1250, they'll go forever. I mean, this one's a baby at 32,000 miles. It's not unusual to see these things with 6 figures. You know, part of it is the boxer engine's a very reliable motor, even though you think it doesn't make any sense with these big jugs sitting outside. They're heavy, they're tough, they're durable, they're protected with crash bars. But what it does is that boxer engine really brings it brings the weight down low to the ground. I don't know how else to describe it other than it's so balanced and so fun to ride. I mean, this thing's an 86. This bike is as old as I am, and just like me, it's still awesome and still kicking. Now, I'll say all the controls feel great. We have a cable clutch over here. You know, of course, cable throttle. The shifter feels good, very precise, you know, like a shifter should feel like. The one thing that really throws me off, and I don't know why this is, but I want to fix it and figure out why it's awful, is the rear brake is just really tucked away back in there that I gotta move my foot in just in the goofiest, like, pigeon toe direction to grab it. I don't know if that's how it's supposed to be. It looks like it should be that way, but it's pretty awful. It's pretty tough to grab, so I'm not sure why they did it like that. Now, in the Paris Dakar edition, it was kind of like, it was a tribute, as far as I know, it was a tribute to them winning the Dakar Rally in Paris. And obviously, they have a bigger fuel tank on it, because when you do something like that, you want more fuel, you want to stop less. So in a way, it was kind of like the OG, like the original GSA bike, where the GSA has a big old tank, which honestly, I like the GS. I'm happy with the GS. I don't need that big giant tank. I'm not going 500. I don't need to go 500 miles without stopping for gas or nothing like that. Another cool thing about this bike is the simplicity of it. It's not complicated. There's no computers in it. There's no driver's aids. You can't blame anyone for when you crash or you give it too much rear brake or too much front brake. It's all you. It's all your fault. Now, like all 5-speed motorcycles, you're always looking for that 6th gear. And like all 6-speed motorcycles, you're always looking for that 7th gear. I'm there. I'm in top gear and, you know, cruising at 50, 55 effortlessly. There's no tachometer. I don't know what the RPMs are. They don't feel high. Now, the BMW GS has gone through some pretty interesting changes throughout its lifetime and generations. As far as I know, this is the lightest one that they've ever made. As you always got to figure out that line of, you know, you want your bike to feel light and nimble. You also want it to be kind of light because you're going to drop it a lot. But the more stuff you add, the more tack, the more abilities, the bigger engine, it's all going to gain a little bit of weight. I mean, you ride this and it feels like a dirt bike. I mean, it feels really light, really nimble. You feel like you can whip it around and just kind of do all the fun stuff that you think you want to do. Well, guys, that wraps it up. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Remember, it is not what you're riding, but where you're going. We'll see you next time, and check this video right up here.